All right, I will get started. We don't have a ton of time, so I'll get started so that you can get on with your day. And if we have any latecomers, that's fantastic too. My name is Lisa Tsakos. I am a natural nutrition coach, and Heather Creamer is as well. We run the Health Coach Collaborative, which is a program or a school, online school that teaches nutrition courses and health coaching courses. So, for anybody who might potentially be interested in becoming a health coach or adding health coaching to your existing practice, please feel free to check us out. We've got courses that are available individually and small programs, extensive programs, and you can become a certified health coach at the end. Today, I'm going to be focusing on mainly nutrition, and we're talking about 5 easy steps to a healthier body. Now, my screen, hang on just a second, because I think I have gone off screen here. Uh-oh, just give me 1 second. I'm sorry. Heather, can you give me a hand for a second? Did I
Sure.
lose my presentation, or can you still see it?
No. Okay. Now we can see it.
Okay, so oops, shoot. Sorry about this, everybody. It was all set up and now it's gone for me. Oh no. Uh-oh. Okay, just give me another second. Pardon me. Oh boy. All right. I'm just gonna have to set this all up all over again. So just
It's
bear with me
Friday.
while I'm doing this.
So while we're waiting, maybe you can put where you are from in the chat.
Thank you. That'd be great. Oh my goodness. Okay. Can you see the presentation now, Heather?
Oh, no, I can't. Sorry.
Darn it. Okay. I guess it is Friday. All right, I will start introducing the topic regardless because I have done this presentation 100,000 times, so I'm familiar with the content anyways while we're getting started. So, just to give you a little bit of background about me, many years ago, I became a very overweight, unhealthy teenager and really struggled with health issues and especially with my weight. And being a teenager back in, oh my gosh, the 90s, when diet culture was at its peak, I was taking fiber pills and diet pills by the time I was 13 years old. And I think about my 15-year-old daughter, I was 2 years younger than she is now. When I was taking this stuff and going on extreme diets and doing everything I could to try and um, lose a little bit of weight. And of course, it backfired on me. So the consequence was that I continued to gain weight rather than lose it. And as I continued to gain weight, my diet became more unhealthy, more extreme. My exercise habits became more unhealthy. I started exercising 1, 2, and I was up to 3 hours a day sometimes eating only 600 calories a day while exercising for up to 3 hours, and it just wasn't working for me. And it wasn't until I was in university and I decided to actually become a certified fitness trainer and take some courses to learn about exercise so that I could do it properly and maybe teach others, that I started to learn about nutrition, and not as far as diet culture nutrition and counting calories and counting fat grams, but learning about how the body actually works and how metabolism works, learning about metabolic health. Now, back then we didn't really use that term metabolic health like we do now, but essentially that's what I was learning about. I was learning about blood sugar levels. I was learning about thyroid and different hormones that play a huge role in metabolism as well as digestion and the digestive process. And as I started to apply some of what I was learning to my body, I decided I had to throw out my scale. I had to change my diet and eat natural whole foods that provided nourishment for these organs that I was learning about. I really wanted to improve my digestion. I mean, this is a little too much information, but I was constipated, my digestion was very slow, and I was determined to speed that up and to have normal bowel movements. And also, I was cold all the time because my thyroid was low. I was verging borderline hypothyroid. fix that too with nutrition and by introducing more minerals to my diet. So it was a very interesting learning process for me. And after a year, I had lost so much weight that I was looking at a photo of myself and realized that I was actually too skinny to go the other way and had to start gaining weight and found that that was more difficult than losing weight. Now, this seminar is not about weight loss. This is about making lifestyle changes and making them with learning, with awareness, with education so that they stick, so that they become more permanent. Now, I've been working with clients for over 25 years, and I see this pattern with clients who are, especially those who are all or nothing. They make extreme changes. They go home after, learning something, reading a book, going to a seminar, whatever it is that they've learned it from a neighbor, or even going home and making drastic changes or going on an extreme diet. And it might last for 3 weeks, 3 months, but then they fall off the wagon. They go to a wedding or a holiday comes around, or they go away on holidays and everything just, or they have a bad day sometimes. And then they're right back to square one. They haven't really learned anything. So today we're going to talk about a few small changes. Some are big changes, but small, most of them can be implemented very slowly and they're not drastic at all. But I'm going to teach you the idea behind them. And a lot of them you've probably implemented, or maybe you had for a while and you kind of, again, fell off the wagon or forgot about it. But all of them play a big role in your metabolic health. And metabolic health is so important because it manages everything: your blood sugar, your cognitive health, your sleep patterns, your hormones, your liver detoxification, the way you feel from moment to moment, the way you think from moment to moment. So, this is what we're discussing over the next half hour. Now, Heather, can you see the slides yet, or are they still not there?
I'm not seeing any slides.
You're not seeing. Okay, okay. All right. So, let's do a share one more time. The first one, and you'll see it in just a moment, is balancing blood glucose. Now, you might be rolling your eyes because I know we hear about balancing blood sugar all the time, but there are some really important reasons to balance your blood sugar. And if you have to make one change in your diet, this would be it, is to make blood sugar an absolute priority. Okay, let's see. Can you see it now?
It says your start. Yes, I see.
Okay.
I see one.
Okay, great. So let's go to slideshow and come on, move away from there.
You
Hmm,
might have to enable editing.
There, no, it's okay. I have it. Okay. So, use presenter view from current slide. All right, we're there. Yeah, you can see
Yes,
it?
we
Yay.
do.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks everyone for your patience. Okay. So balance your blood sugar. So first thing, of course, is to get rid of all the white stuff. The white stuff is the white bread, white pasta, white sugar, anything with refined sugars in it. You look at a package, and if you notice some sugars listed there, or you can look at the carbohydrates, and then below that, you'll see the sugars. Those are added sugars for the most part. These are the foods we want to limit or replace with more fiber-rich, complex carbohydrates. So the brown stuff, right? Brown rice, quinoa, oatmeal, corn, beans, legumes, sweet potatoes, or potatoes with the peel in general. That is the first step. Now, you probably already know that because this is what we hear about. But another very, very important step, and one that I see my clients kind of missing out on regularly, is making sure that every time you eat a carbohydrate food, you pair it with a protein food. This is a principle that's becoming a basic principle. There is loads and loads of research that shows that when you have carbs alone, even if they're complex carbs, your blood sugar will climb. Now, a simple carb like white pasta, for example, or just eating a cookie or a muffin is going to cause a spike in your blood sugar. And what goes up must come down. So a spike is going to be followed by a crash. When you introduce fiber with complex carbohydrates, it's a slower rise, but then it's going to come down. But when you eat the pasta or the muffin with some protein, for example, eating a banana with a handful of nuts, the protein will buffer that rise, causing an even slower rise in your blood glucose. It also takes longer to digest. And if a meal takes longer to digest, we're learning it's going to cause less of a spike in your blood glucose. So that's a really important tip. And that means that every time you eat any kind of carbohydrate, even if it's a muffin, you always, always want to pair it with a little protein, with some food that has some protein in it. So my daughter loves oatmeal for breakfast, and I add temp hearts and some walnuts, and now I've started adding some protein powder right into her oatmeal, and she absolutely loves it. Some people don't really like the texture, but she loves it, and she feels satiated for a much longer period of time. And she also finds that when she goes to school, she's more focused when she has the protein powder along with the oatmeal. Versus when you just eat carbs alone, even something like oatmeal, again, you're going to feel well for a while, but as your blood sugar comes down, you start to get those symptoms where you start to feel a bit. Some people will start to feel nervous and shaky, and perhaps headachy or hangry, and very, very hungry. And when you get to that point where you're very hungry, we tend to lose our control over the choices we're going to make for our next meal. But there are lots of other tricks and tips for balancing your blood sugar. And one of them is to add cinnamon. I love this one. Adding cinnamon is actually a way to even trick your A1C or some blood glucose test if you're diabetic into thinking that you're not diabetic. Now, I don't, that's not a dare. I'm not suggesting in any way, shape, or form that you do that, but the effect is so powerful. So, half a teaspoon to 2 teaspoons a day, which is about 4 grams of cinnamon, sprinkled into something. Like you can put it in some coffee, sprinkle it over oatmeal, put it into something that you're eating throughout the day. And this will help prevent the spike in your blood sugar. Now, another really interesting trick is having some vinegar before you eat carbohydrates, before you eat a starchy meal. For example, if you're going to have a pasta dinner, take a tablespoon of any kind of vinegar. It could be apple cider vinegar, which I would highly recommend because it's also got probiotic properties, or it could be just any type of vinegar that you have on hand, and put about a tablespoon into a small glass of water, maybe half a glass, as much as you can tolerate, and drink that about 15 minutes before you eat your starchy or carbohydrate based meal. And the acetic acid in the vinegar will buffer that rise in blood glucose. And this has been well researched. You can find more information out about it. And it's actually quite effective. Another interesting technique for preventing that spike in blood sugar is to cool your starches after you've cooked them. For example, if you've cooked a pot of brown rice or quinoa or even pasta, some potatoes, um, cook them up, cool them down, put them in the fridge for 24 hours. So you're cooking them a day before you're going to eat them. Now, I know they're not going to, especially potatoes, are not going to taste as good, but when you reheat them the second time, they have a lot more resistant starch, which means that your body won't absorb as much carbohydrate. It'll pass through your digestive system. And resistant starch tends to have prebiotic properties. So it's also feeding the good microbes, the healthy microbes in your microbiome. So those are two huge benefits of doing this process, going through this process. Now, as far as potatoes go, boiled potatoes are actually better as far as causing a spike in blood sugar than roasted or baked potatoes. So that's another option. Then we have meal sequencing, and I'm curious if anyone's heard of or tried meal sequencing. Now, I think this was hilarious actually, and I was, tell my clients and even my colleagues, like, who's going to do this actually? Because someone always says to me, I find it weird that there's a member of my family who will eat only one food on their plate at a time. And this is what I'm recommending, because this is a proven way to reduce blood sugar by eating in this specific order. So the idea is to eat your non-starchy veggies first, followed by protein and some healthy fats, followed by any starches or foods with added sugars or any kind of sugar like fruit at the end. So you can see in the graphic there, the example would be having your salad first, which a lot of us do anyway. and then eating your protein, so your chicken or your fish or your beef or whatever, your beans, and following that with brown rice or quinoa or pasta. Now it is a bit strange, but if you're alone and you're eating by yourself, then give it a try and you might find that that makes a difference. It's so helpful if you can get your hands on one to wear a continuous glucose monitor to be able to assess how different foods are affecting your blood sugar because it is different for everybody. We have some wonderful tools like the glycemic index and the glycemic load. Those can be helpful and they can be really good guides to help you figure out which foods have a potential of causing your blood sugar to spike more so than others, but it might be individual for you. For example, one person might be able to eat loads of blueberries, a cup of blueberries, and have no spike in blood sugar, whereas somebody else might notice a spike after just a tablespoon's worth of blueberries. So, wearing a CGM, even just for a few weeks, can help you figure out which foods or which combination of foods will cause a spike and which combinations keep your blood sugar in the healthy range. You can ask your doctor about them. You will probably have to pay for it unless you are pre-diabetic or diabetic or hypoglycemic or fall somewhere in that under that umbrella of diabetes, but you can also buy them on Amazon or well.ca. There are different places where you can get a CGM, and they are coming down in price. Last year they were over $300. Now they're something like $130, $140. So they may come down even more so. And we're technology is improving so quickly that before we know it, we're going to have smartwatches with CGMs built in or other forms of technology that are extremely effective. So just keep that on your radar because this is, I think, an excellent tool for most people. Just again, just to figure out what how different foods affect your blood sugar, and then you can stop wearing it. And some people do find that intermittent fasting is very helpful for balancing your blood sugar, even diabetics. Now, I have to admit, as a practitioner, I'm always a little bit reluctant to put a diabetic or a client with diabetes on an intermittent fasting program. So we take it really, really slowly. We start with like a 12-12 and then go down to a um, take down an hour every couple of weeks just to see how their blood sugar handles it. But most of them actually do really well with intermittent fasting, not every day, but even if it's 2 or 3 days a week. And one of the factors is not snacking between meals. If you can avoid that, snacking between meals causes your blood sugar to go up and down. So if you can train your blood glucose levels to stay in a certain zone between meals, that's really good for your body and for your long-term metabolic health. And definitely that overnight fast is really, really key for all of us at all ages. So maybe cutting your eating by 8 o'clock at night and then not eating again until like 7 or 8 the next day, giving your body that good 12-hour fast whenever possible is really important. Okay, and the last tip under this point number one is moving after meals. So your blood sugar levels are at their highest about 30 to 90 minutes after you eat. So that's quite a range there, 30 to 90 minutes. Studies show that if you move, even just walking, just for minimum 2 minutes, but ideally about 15 minutes after a meal, particularly dinner, that will prevent your blood sugar from spiking and it helps to keep your insulin stable. So that's a nice one, especially now that the weather is improving. If you can get out there after dinner, that would be amazing, even just for 10 or 15 minutes. All right, protein at each meal is point number two. And this one is so key. I mentioned having protein with every carbohydrate food, and a lot of people have moved to a more higher protein or protein dominated type of meal plan, which is fine, although science is starting to push back a little and telling us that maybe we're a little too focused on protein. We'll see. We'll see. It always goes back and forth. Every decade, it's like high carb, high protein, high carb, high protein, high fat, high protein, high carb. So we'll see where the next few years take us as far as research goes. But for the time being, it is essential that we do have some protein at every single meal. And studies are supporting the idea of having a minimum of 20 grams of protein, up to 35 grams, depending on your fitness level, on your size, and on your age. All three of those factors play a role in the amount of protein that you need every single day and at each meal. And the reason why I'm emphasizing each meal is because for most of us, like whatever range of protein you want to have per day, um, most of us, if you're going to get 20 grams per breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that's already 60 grams by the end of the day. And if you throw in a couple of other protein sources here and there, then you've met your daily requirements. So it's not that hard to meet your protein targets if you can focus on getting that protein source at each meal. And the chart there shows you some sources of protein. Eggs don't have as much as you would expect. A lot of people think that if I just eat a couple of eggs a day, then that's their target. But even two large eggs only gives you about 16 grams of protein for breakfast. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day for protein. And if you're intermittent fasting and you don't start eating until later in the day, that's fine too. But make sure that your first meal of the day contains as much protein as you can possibly get in there to keep your blood sugar levels steady throughout the day, because that first meal of the day is going to set the stage for your blood sugar for the entire day. And protein at your first meal also changes your cognition. It makes you feel more alert, more focused. It supports your memory and just cognition overall, and your mood, and of course, your appetite. So, those are all good things. Okay, I love point number three. This has been a fun one to talk about for the last couple of years, ever since research found that eating 30 unique plants every single week supports microbial diversity in your microbiome. So, what that means, there's over trillions and trillions of microbes living in your gut microbiome, over 1,000 different species of microbes living in your microbiome, and they seem to control everything. They control our immune system, they control our gut health, obviously, they manage our brain health because there is a connection from the gut to the brain via the vagus nerve, which is the largest nerve in the body, and the messages that are transmitted back and forth determine how we're going to behave from moment to moment, how we're going to deal with stress, how we sleep at night, and on top of all the physical factors that roles they play in our physical health. So 30 different plant foods support the microbiome in such a way that it improves microbial diversity, which means you have different strains of microbes, and the more, the better for your overall health. So at first you hear that and you're thinking, 30, that's like outrageous. I don't get 30 plant foods in a week. But if you think about it, it includes not just fruits and veggies, it also includes beans, nuts and seeds, all the grains that you eat, and herbs and spices, both dried and fresh. So that's a lot of options. That's a lot of options. And that beautiful graphic there shows you all the different options. So let's say for breakfast, you have sprouted bread with avocado on it and maybe some tomato slices. And of course, you want your protein in there. So you're going to have an egg. The egg does not count, obviously, as a plant food, but you've already got, if you've got like a spread in multigrain bread, for example, how many different grains are in that multigrain bread? Look at the label. There might be 3 or 4 different ones in there. And then if you add some cilantro or some parsley on top, that's another one. So already for breakfast, you've got 5 different plant foods. And then for lunch, maybe a bean salad with different herbs in it or some spices, maybe sprinkle some turmeric in there, some chopped cucumber, some asparagus. It's not that hard to do, right? And so as I said earlier, we're a culture that really loves to count. We love to count calories and fat grams, and I counted fiber for a long time. Now I like to count my plant foods. So I do sum up at the end of my day, how many different plants did I eat? And on average, I'm getting about 15 to 17, which is not bad. It probably could be better. And again, you don't want it to be the same 15 every single day, right? Because we want to have 30 by the end of the week. It's really not that hard to do. So I challenge you to focus on that this week, and especially on polyphenols, because polyphenols are a group of they're antioxidants that have powerful anti-inflammatory properties, and they are just quite amazing. You find polyphenols primarily in the berries, and this is one of the reasons why berries are so good for our health. So it's raspberries, strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, those are the big ones. We also find polyphenols in beans, especially black beans. And then in vegetables, especially red vegetables like red onions, red cabbage, radicchio, but in many others too, broccoli, tomatoes have a lot of polyphenols in them. And then we also find polyphenols, and you're going to love this, in dark chocolate. That's why it's on the screen. So dark chocolate, but it has to have 85% cacao content or higher. I know that's a lot, right? But you adapt, start with 60 and then move to a higher cacao content. And over time, you'll get to 85. And then anything less than that is going to taste way too sweet. Or cacao powder. So buying like a cacao beans or buds or the powder and just using it in different foods, putting it in your smoothie, for example, and that's going to give you a good supply of polyphenols. We also have polyphenols in green tea, black tea, even coffee. As long as you don't add sugar in it, the coffee is fine. And olive oil, which is an incredible source of polyphenols, actually. So think about the diet that has all of these in it, and it's the Mediterranean diet. The Mediterranean diet is probably so effective due to its polyphenol content, and some researchers suggest that it's the olive oil that makes the Mediterranean diet so healthy for preventing dementia and Alzheimer's disease, for overall mental and cognitive health over time, for preventing cancer, for preventing heart disease. It's quite amazing. So look at the polyphenols, and I just actually want to say one more thing about them before I move on, because there's an emphasis here on gut health as research continues to point in the direction of how important the microbiome is to our overall health. It seems to play a role in everything that's going on in our body at any given time. So a lot of these 5 steps are reflective of what's going on in the microbiome. Now, when you eat polyphenols, they feed a specific type of microbe in your gut called Akkermansia muciniphila. And Akkermansia, you may have heard of it. There's been a lot of talk about Akkermansia lately because it will those microbes help reduce blood sugar by making GLP-1. And GLP-1 is basically like what you take Ozempic for, or any of those GLP-1 drugs to slow down your digestion, to control your appetite, and to reduce your blood sugar, and also manage weight. So the more polyphenols, the more Akkermansia, the more GLP-1 your body makes, which will result in better metabolic health for your microbiome. It's amazing. The body is absolutely amazing. Okay, so moving on to number 4, because other foods and ingredients that will feed your microbiome have to do with fiber. The recommendations for fiber are quite high, actually. Anywhere from 21 to 38 grams of fiber a day. So when I work with clients, I like to recommend on average 25 grams of fiber a day. If we can have that as a target, then it's reachable, but we have to work towards it, right? Because the white stuff, white bread, white pasta, those foods, bagels and croissants, they lack fiber. And although the recommendation for fiber is well over 21 grams a day, most Canadians and Americans are only ingesting somewhere between 12 and 13 grams of fiber a day. So that's about half of the recommended intake. We know that it helps you have better bowel movements, but it also plays a significant role in blood sugar management. And fiber also, especially the soluble fibers, which are sticky, they bind to cholesterol, they bind to potentially dangerous hormones in the body and help remove them from the stool. But you have to have daily bowel movements in order for that to be happening. And they also support appetite control because they are filling. So when you eat a high fiber meal, you're satiated longer for a longer period of time than when you eat a meal with low fiber. And part of the reason for that is because those hunger signals are literally signaled by your blood sugar. So when your blood sugar is low, your brain is signaled to start those hunger pangs and tell you that you are hungry and that it's time to eat. So the more fiber, the longer it takes to digest that meal, the longer the time before you feel those hunger pangs again. And then you have more control over what you eat at your next meal, which is so, so critical because you can go a long period of time without eating. But if you're absolutely ravenous at your next meal and you overeat or you eat twice as much as you would have otherwise, then that's backfiring on you, right? I struggle with that sometimes too when I get distracted and I forget to eat. So here are some good fiber sources. Beans and lentils are right at the top, and they're my favorite, especially lentils. They are high in fiber, high in protein. They are inexpensive. They cook up really fast. They're so versatile, and you can use lentils, mix them into like a meat sauce with ground chicken or ground meat if you eat animal foods to make a meat sauce for pasta or rice or lasagna or whatever it is that you're having. Chili is incredible. It's such a great opportunity to throw in a lot of vegetables that maybe are not so fresh anymore that you would otherwise put in the composter and getting lots of vegetables and lots of fiber into your body. So there's some good sources there you can include at will. And by the way, if you are finding that it's just too hard for you to eat foods that are high in fiber, there are always the fiber. I don't like to call them supplements per se because I use them as food, like chia. Easily putting some chia into your granola or Greek yogurt or into something that you're baking or eating, putting or you into a glass of water and just drinking it up. That's hardcore, but it works. Or ground flax seeds, which is my absolute favorite. Ground flax, I recommend to a lot of people for hormone balancing on top of the fiber. Ground flax has lignans in it, which will help bind excess estrogen and pull it out of the body through the stool. And it's a very effective hormone balancer, especially for women who have severe PMS or menopausal women with symptoms. It's extremely effective. All right. Last but not least, almost actually, include some probiotic and prebiotic foods in your diet daily. So again, there's this focus on the microbiome because with the 1,000+ microbes that are living there, we want a healthy balance, which means we want as many of them as possible to be pro health versus those that are anti health, that are anti inflammatory, that can create metabolites that will cause dysfunction in your body in some shape or form. It could have to do with metabolic health or cognitive health or pro-cancer or pro-inflammation. They work in many different wild and wonderful ways. So probiotics and prebiotics basically feed the microbes in your body. Now, probiotics are actually living microbes that you're putting right into your body from the foods that you're eating. So foods like fermented vegetables, which you can easily make yourself, or you can try buying some real sauerkraut, not the kind that's sitting in a jar in the aisle of your grocery store. There aren't a lot of live microbes in there. You want the kind that's refrigerated, that's fermented in the traditional way. Same with kimchi. Just a forkful a day will supply enough probiotics to build up your microbiome. Some Greek yogurt or kefir. My family loves kefir. I used to buy the plain kind or make the plain kind, and now that they're a bit older, they like the flavored kind, but it still makes a big difference in their health. And I can see the difference that it makes because when we don't use it for a while, my son gets eczema. When he starts using kimchi again, his eczema goes, not kimchi, sorry, kefir again, his eczema vanishes within a couple of days. So I know for my kids, it makes a big difference. For my clients, it makes a big difference, even though there is some added sugar. Or if you can buy the plain kefir, you can use that in salad dressings. It's fantastic in salad dressings, or just put it, mix in some raspberries or some fresh fruit and make your own flavored kefir. I used to do that, but now I'm too busy. Okay, sourdough bread is a good option too. Kombucha, I don't personally love. I find some of my clients don't react well to kombucha, but if it works for your body, that's a great option. It's obviously a great alternative to something like a soft drink. Tempeh miso, fermented in the traditional way, or soy sauce fermented in the traditional way. And finally, apple cider vinegar has prebiotic properties as well. So those are putting the live microbes directly into your intestines. And if you can't get a source of probiotics every single day, you can take a supplement. With the supplements, 10 to 25 billion CFUs is what you're aiming for. So this one here has 10 billion per capsule. Uh, some people suggest taking it on an empty stomach, others suggest taking it with food. Do whatever works for you. I like to take it separate from food, and especially before I go to bed, because I like to feel it working in my digestive system. They're live microbes, so you should feel them doing something, right? So I can feel some movement in my intestine when I take them. And when I don't feel anything happening, I start to wonder what's going on. Have I kept them in the fridge too long, or maybe they got damaged in some way, and it's time to replenish the supplement. And always about 3 hours away from caffeine. Prebiotics are fodder for the probiotics. So this is food for microbes. So as I mentioned earlier, resistant starch is one, and the foods on the right there, some of them have a lot of resistant starch in them, and high fiber foods. Not always, but many high fiber foods tend to feed the probiotics or the good bacteria in your microbiome. So some great sources: asparagus, garlic, Jerusalem artichoke, leeks, onions, chicory, dandelion greens, jicama. There's bananas. There's actually a lot more than what's on that list. And as a bonus, I want to talk for just really briefly about stimulating the vagus nerve. Now, the vagus nerve is the largest cranial nerve in your body, and it connects your brain to your gut, to your microbiome. This is where the gut brain connection comes in. It controls many, many different functions in your body, controls to a large degree your breathing, your heart rate, a lot of functions that we don't have voluntary control over. And it controls your parasympathetic state, which is your body's rest and digest state. That means that in order to calm down, in order to properly digest food, you want to stimulate your vagus nerve. One of the principles of good digestion that Heather and I talk about with our students often is taking 2 or 3 deep cleansing breaths before you sit down to eat a meal. Because when you're stressed, you're not in the rest and digest state, which means that your mouth will not produce the saliva that's needed to digest your food. Your stomach won't produce the gastric acids that are needed to digest your food. Your small intestine doesn't get the different enzymes from your supplementary digestive organs that it needs to digest the food that you just ate. So when you're eating in the car, when you're eating while you're watching a scary movie or watching the news, which is worse than a scary movie these days, or any days really, when you're anxious about things, you're eating at your desk, which so many of my clients do almost every single day. They're not even thinking about their food, right? All of these factors will interfere with the way that we are able to digest a meal. And then we end up with heartburn and acid reflux and gas and bloating and burping. And then over time, that can worsen and amount to GERD or IBS or even worse digestive problems. Actually, speaking of IBS, the vagus nerve is a great example here because have you ever noticed that sometimes when you're feeling very stressed, you might experience loose stools, diarrhea, even? Whenever I have to go on TV, I almost always have a little bout of diarrhea before I leave the house. And it's unusual, but it's my digestive system is overstimulated because of my nerves. So, and that's where the vagus nerve comes in. So you can control your vagus nerve and your vagal tone, which means training your vagus nerve to not to keep yourself calm the next time you experience stress. This is really important. And some of these tips here will help build up your vagal tone, which again, in turn will help you build some resilience against stress. So exposing yourself to cold, this one is not one of my favorites, to be honest, but some people absolutely love this. And the plunge pools are so popular. They even sell them at Costco. Taking a cold shower, even just splashing cold water on your face, this will stimulate your vagus nerve. So when you're feeling anxious, this is something you can try to help calm you down. So next time you're feeling stressed, just give that a try. Go to the sink, turn on the cold water and splash it on your face and just give it 30 seconds. Another one is just laughing out loud. There are even some gyms or clinics offering laughter therapy sessions with groups of people. You just start laughing, and you know it's contagious, right? So once a couple of people start laughing, then it spreads, and then you can't stop. And next thing you know, you have a bellyache from laughing so hard. Gargling or humming for anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute, the longer the better. Chanting either on your own or within a group, which is really nice if you can find a group in your area. It's actually a beautiful experience, and there's nothing more calming than chanting with a group of people. Or if you go to church, when you sing hymns, it's the same type of experience. And again, with singing, the slower you sing, the better. And obviously, deep breathing. So, like I said earlier, even three nice deep breaths will switch your nervous system state from the sympathetic, which is the fight or flight, to the rest and digest. Couple of deep breaths when you're feeling anxious, when you're feeling nervous, or before you're about to eat will stimulate your nervous vagus nerve, help you calm down, put your nervous system into the parasympathetic state, and then your body can digest food. And over time, you can train yourself to stay calm when you're in a situation that would normally call for a lot of stress and anxiety. All right. So just to sum up before we say goodbye, balancing your blood glucose, protein at each meal, 30 unique plant foods a week, 25 grams of fiber a day, introducing friendly bacteria, and finally stimulating the vagus nerve. And you are well on your way to a healthier body. So I'm so grateful that you joined us today. The floor is open. So if you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourselves or type your questions or comments into the chat. And if you're interested in pursuing either a career in nutrition or health coaching, or even just checking out some courses, learning about how to get your digestive system to function better, taking a course on just the intros, the basics of nutrition, learning about carbs, fats, and proteins, meal planning. We have a fantastic meal planning course that is both personally useful, but also if you're working with clients, it's very beneficial to um, help your clients improve their time efficiency during the week. And I believe that is it. So thank you again for joining us. Thank you so much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.